Directed by Bruce Kessler and starring Robert Foxworth, we are talking DEATHMOON, and this is a 1978 made-for-TV werewolf movie. It's kind of a Wolfman in Paradise style story. The story focuses on Foxworth's character Jason, who is an overworked, I think, real estate salesman, and he ends up going on vacation to Hawaii. And he goes there because this is where his great-grandfather used to be a missionary. However, what he doesn't know is the great-grandfather may have disrespected the locals and ended up getting a curse on his family, which has been passed down through generations. So now when he is in Hawaii and he gets a bit of that sweet moonlight, he turns into a werewolf. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So this was a made-for-TV movie, so there obviously are restrictions in regards to things like nudity and gore and levels of violence and stuff like that. What can we say that works in this movie's favour? I have to say I quite liked Foxworth in our main role as our protagonist slash antagonist, I guess, Jason, our main character, because he comes across as someone who obviously really doesn't know what is happening to them, and as such, though he does end up killing quite a few people, he's not doing it intentionally, nor is he really even aware of what's kind of going on. So you can't help but feel a little bit sort of sympathetic to him. And even when he's kind of like sort of beginning to sort of transform, I quite liked, I mean, it's a little goofy admittedly, but how he sort of starts twitching and sort of reacting to the moon and stuff like that, like he's almost having some type of allergic reaction to it. And I kind of quite like that, and I thought he actually gives a kind of somewhat of a subtle, down-to-earth, quiet performance. And, you know, like I said, it's a made-for-TV, low-budget horror movie, but it's kind of, it's quite a sympathetic role, and I think Foxworth treats it quite seriously, and as such, you kind of root for the guy. Now, the next thing I would say is if you are a fan of kind of like the 1940s kind of style Wolfman films, you know, like the sort of the Universal style Wolfman movies, you may like this because it definitely has shades of this in it. I mean, it's not always a good comparison because this is, you know, obviously a movie which is decades later, but it sort of has the sort of the very similar looking Wolfman, to be honest with you, and the transformation sequence that we see again is kind of reminiscent of that. But it's nonetheless, it gives you that kind of like that 1940s vibe to a degree. So if you are a fan of the classic era of cinema, you may kind of want to check it out. The movie kind of is a little vague in regards to the actual curse and what it actually means. And although you could argue, and I will argue, that maybe that's not particularly strong storytelling, it does give the kind of an air of mystery about what's actually kind of going on here. And you know, it has this kind of like this weird kind of mystical native vibe to it, where it's almost like kind of a voodoo type style kind of curse to a degree. You know, so again, it has a little bit of a sort of strange mystery to it, again, which makes it quite, you know, intriguing. And this kind of tropical setting gives it, or this luxury setting, I suppose, more than tropical, gives it this kind of, you know, paradise-looking scenery and kind of backdrop and stuff, which I think is makes it quite interesting in many ways. What doesn't work with this movie, I mean, like I've mentioned, it's a little vague in regards to the actual curse, and it almost seems like there's just a great-grandfather, and it's not, I mean, do you have to be in Hawaii? Why specifically have you got to be in Hawaii if it's simply the moon that's kind of making you, you know, do this? It's a little kind of like vague. The story itself, there's not much to it. It's just this kind of, this guy having these you know, transformations, ends up killing people, doesn't really remember it. It's up to the kind of the authorities and this kind of like head of security at this resort figuring out what's kind of trying to go on, and you know, that's kind of it. We spend a lot of time in a kind of a B plot with this thief that is kind of going around this hotel as well, sort of swiping people's belongings, and I kind of thought this might end up being some sort of cross-sectional plot point, and it's not really. It's just like, okay, well, why do we spend so much time with this guy? Don't know. I mean, it's like when he's a werewolf, he seems to nearly always attack women. Apart from one, I think one male character who he just happens to kind of like bump into. And like, okay, is it some sort of like sexual predatory thing? But again, it's just never really expanded on as to why. It's just, you know, coincidence, really. You know, it's just, so there's elements here that I feel the story really doesn't kind of expand on at all, to be honest. As I mentioned, it is a TV movie, so it's a really bloodless affair, to the point where it ends up being a little silly. So this is a style of Wolfman where, you know, our Wolfman remains kind of clothed. All we see, he's got, you know, wolf hands and a wolf mask, and like, you know, he's still wearing like the shirt and trousers and things that he's wearing the night before, and we're led to believe he's ripped apart various kind of different victims. But there's not like one drop of blood or anything like that. There's not like a ripped shirt or anything. There's no sort of anything really to suggest that he's been the kind of like the perpetrator in some bloodthirsty attack. It's a little on the kind of the silly side. And, you know, I understand that there's restrictions in regards to bloods maybe, but I mean, there are other ways. I mean, you could just have the ripped clothing or dirt or something. We see a little bit of dirt on his knees one time, and that's basically it. So, you know, the werewolf. I mean, this is a 1978 movie, and the effects look straight out the 40s. Let me just say that. Again, TV budget, I get it, but they don't look particularly strong. Let's just kind of say that, and it is a little bit too similar, maybe, to your classic Wolfman look, and looks a bit hokey, it must be said. We never really get masses of good looks at our Wolfman, and you know, it's not exactly scary stuff when we do, it must be said. So it's just kind of a slight story. It has a certain kind of 70s charm to it. The music is extremely 70s, and I've got to say, watching it now, it's kind of a little kind of annoying, these like high-pitched kind of like squeals that it has. I've got to say, I wasn't a huge fan of the music, but there's a certain charm to it, I suppose, if you want a sort of somewhat sort of throwaway sort of werewolf movie that you may not have seen. It's nothing really that I think it will maintain anyone's interest out of a one-time watch, for sure. And if you're a fan of, as I say, the 1940s style of Wolfman, but it's a 4 out of 10, and I feel I'm being fairly generous with that, if I'm honest. Have you seen it? What were your thoughts? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to you next time.